The following program is an independent production, apart from DJDP Productions. The views, opinions, and ideas of the producers of The Darkest Hour do not necessarily reflect those of the staff of DJDP Productions, its partners or affiliates. The producers of The Darkest Hour with Amanda Jane of Forget Me Not assume all responsibility for the content of its program. Should you have questions or concerns regarding The Darkest Hour with Amanda Jane, please contact the producers directly. Or you may also contact the staff at Neo Retro FM through email at djdphoenix@protonmail.com. Be sure to include the date of the program and the subject matter you're inquiring about. And now, Neo Retro FM presents The Darkest Hour with Amanda Jane, streamed live from Marysville, Washington.
For tomorrow, we embark on the darkest hour.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the 7th episode of The Darkest Hour. I'm your host, Amanda Jane. Tonight, we'll start the show with a story that was shared with me about a year ago from my friend Zelda. Since I know she and a few of her friends at the senior living facility have been listening to The Darkest Hour, but also know that they tend to fall asleep a bit before the end, it only seems right to begin with her story. So, let's get started, shall we? This was a very long time ago, but it left a lasting impression. I believe it helped shape my open mind growing up, more specifically my acceptance that life was precious, but that there was something beyond. That we shouldn't fear death or anything that is inevitable. This was in 1958. I was 9 years old at the time, living in Steilacoom, Washington, where I lived most of my life. And on this day, like most days, I was riding my bike around the neighborhood. Also, like most days, and like most people at the time, I wasn't wearing a helmet. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I remember I was on a stretch of road lined with trees, where the sun would come through the tree canopies. You could get a hint of cool ocean air from the Puget Sound. Since I knew the road very well, and it was always clear, I'd often loved to close my eyes as I rode through. Not intelligent, I know, but it sure felt good. This afternoon I was doing just that. Before I closed my eyes, I gave the street a good look, both directions. Not a car or a pedestrian in sight. I was making my way down the road, eyes closed, really enjoying myself, when suddenly my body was halted. I felt my bike leave from underneath me and my feet, as my head hit something, and I fell backwards. Just as I did, I could hear someone say, "Whoa," and then some more distant chattering. I opened my eyes as I sat up, and I couldn't believe that there wasn't just one man, but several other people there. Some just walking the streets and some looking or walking in my direction. But they all seemed to be just as surprised to see me as I was to see them. I went to stand up and grab my bike, turning my body around and closing my eyes for just a moment. When I turned back around, there was no one there. The street was again empty, as it was when I'd originally decided to coast with my eyes closed. But I did see those people, and all of those people saw me. I cannot explain much beyond that. Some things we can't always explain. Maybe that's scary, or maybe it's a gift. Then there's just what I believe, which is that I got a very brief, very real glimpse into the spirit world. Perhaps it was because I almost joined them that day. My two cousins and I try to go twice a year, always once, on a weekend-long fishing trip. We rent a cabin somewhere in the same general area, catch up on our lives, hunt, fish, the usual. But last summer, one of my cousins had knee surgery, and he wasn't going to be able to make it. He told me that his best friend from college was still in town, and that he'd really enjoy filling in for him. I'd never met him before, but that didn't really matter. Everyone else knew him, and I was excited for the trip. We took off the next day and headed to our spot. We'd gotten there a bit late for hunting, but perfect time and plenty of time to head up to the docks for some fishing. Among some of the other things that we bring with us was a weather radio, in case of an emergency. We set it up as we usually do, on any FM frequency, and chill out, waiting to catch something. Or not. Between us talking and getting to know more about my cousin's friend, the radio started to make a loud crackling sound, almost like it was switching between channels. We'd never actually heard this radio make any sound, aside from the initial beep of turning it on. We took this thing with us when we were trying to be stealthy, so... Either way, we looked at it and moved on, kept fishing. There was a small switch on the side of the radio that you would need to hit in order to change it from FM to AM. And with no one near the radio, it mysteriously switched from FM to AM. I thought this was very strange, but I just walked over and switched it back. Eventually, it was time to call it a night. We started to head back, but my cousin's friend looked distracted. He just kept looking forward, staring at the water, smiling, but also looking slightly uneasy. I called out to him once more, and he got up, still smiling. We all made our way back to the cabin. When we walked through the front door, my cousin and I ran toward the kitchen. We heard a loud noise, several noises. All of the dishes had been thrown to the floor of the cabin, and my radio started making the same loud crackling noise. My cousin's friend comes up to me, puts his hand on my shoulder and tells me, "Don't worry, it's the spirit of the man. He still lives here. He just doesn't like you guys coming here. Well, he doesn't like anyone coming here." For some reason, I didn't question him. I just sort of accepted the answer for what it was at the time. "He is trying to scare us," he tried to reassure me. I looked at him, puzzled, and we moved on. We didn't get any hunting done that weekend. It didn't feel right bringing out weapons. I know it doesn't make any sense, but when I got home, my cousin explained to me that his friend is a medium. I'm not much of a believer of supernatural type stuff, as much as I am a skeptic, but things changed a bit for me after that experience. I'm not so quick to dismiss all things unexplained. That's for sure. When I was in 6th grade, I was casted as the giant in the elementary school's play for Jack and the Beanstalk. When dress rehearsal began in preparation for the nearing performance, all the kids in the play would pile into 3 white vans and make the short trip to the high school, which is where the dress rehearsal and the actual show took place. After rehearsal, our parents would come to the high school to pick us up. Usually my mom picked me up right after, and when we got home, I'd have a couple of hours to do homework, play Nintendo, or watch WWF on Mondays and Thursdays, before going to bed and starting the routine again the next day. One particularly blusterous and rainy evening, which aren't too uncommon in Western Washington, rehearsal had just ended, and all of the kids began to filter out into the downpour. I'm one of the last ones out, trying to gather my belongings to get on my rain gear. I'd come prepared for the weather, with my new stone-cold Steve Austin rain boots, and a matching windbreaker that had Austin 316 written in bones across the back. There was no way I was going to waste an opportunity to sport this combo. Everyone would see it in all of the glory that it was. It was the 90s, and if anyone told me this wasn't cool, I'd have kicked a mud hole in their chest and finished him off with a stunner. As an adult, I understand why I didn't have many friends in elementary school. But I believe in the long run it made me stronger. I'll always be proud of the style I had. This being said, I remember having to scramble, looking for my hat, because earlier, at rehearsal, a bully named Kevin threw it off the stage like a frisbee. The last I saw of it was the green and white stage lights reflecting off its black leather bill, and then it sailed into the darkness of unattended theater seats. I wanted to give Kevin the stunner right then and there, but knew I'd most certainly get in trouble from the teacher who already had a short fuse. So now, I'm forced to sprint up and down these rows looking for my hat, while my less-than-patient teacher stands next to the door leading outside, anxiously waiting to lock up and leave. I'm on my hands and knees in the third row now, blindly padding around on the pitch black that is a theater floor. And suddenly I feel the brim of my hat brush over my fingertips, and then rest on my hand, as if someone put it there. Though at the time, I didn't think twice about it. I was too stressed out about my teacher's dwindling patience level as she was still waiting by the doors. I grabbed the hat, put it on, sprinted out the doors and into the rain, all the while apologizing and thanking my teacher for waiting. It's really coming down now, and with her clipboard over her head to use as an umbrella, my teacher starts to run to her car. She turns around and shouts to me, "Your mom's here, right?" I reply with an instant, "Yes." Not even bothering to scan the parking lot, as I'm already feeling anxious about wasting any more of this woman's time. She gives me a thumbs up, hops in her car, and rips out of the parking lot. When her headlights leave the property, I let out a long exhale. Now, I have an opportunity to calmly take in my surroundings and actually look for my mom's car. Almost instantly, I realize there are no more cars in the parking lot. All the kids have been picked up, and my teacher just drove away without noticing any of this, leaving me under the little alcove that leads to the theater doors. Well, this is a situation I've never been in before. It's not like my mom to be late picking me up. I remember trying not to stress out, but my stone-cold Steve Austin rain jacket wasn't doing the best at keeping me dry, and I really didn't like the idea of being stranded in a dark parking lot. As a kid, Saturday morning anti-drug commercials made me think there were groups of roving gangs that would stalk the streets at night and lure poor, unsuspecting kids like me into a life of crime and pills. I turn around and half-heartedly pull on the doors again, knowing I watched my teacher lock them before she ran. And this generates the response I was suspecting. Loud clicks of metal. No luck on getting inside. I turn back around and stare off into the rainy parking lot again. This was a time before kids had cell phones, so I was only made aware of how much time was actually passing from the streetlights turning on and slowly becoming a more vivid contrast to the dark parking lot they surrounded. Pressing my back against the cold metal doors, I slid down into a seated position, wrapping my arms around my knees, trying to preserve body heat, creating a million theories in my head as to why my mom hasn't picked me up yet. Eventually, I reached the conclusion that I should try to walk home. I had a general idea of where I lived and had been up and down these roads enough times to give me some confidence in knowing the direction I should be heading. But as soon as I stood up to collect my things and mentally prepare myself to brave the storm, I heard the door click. Assuming it was just the metal readjusting after my weight left it, I didn't bother trying the handle again. I grabbed my backpack and stepped out from under the alcove. I gave the area where I was sitting one more glance to see if I had forgotten anything, when I noticed one of the double doors was slightly ajar. I thought, maybe when I stood up and pushed off the door, it loosened the lock. That didn't make any sense, but I was a child, left alone in a dark, rainy parking lot, and was grateful that another option had fallen into my lap, besides walking home and having to deal with those gangs giving free drugs to kids. I approach the door handle and pull. It opens. Almost giddy, I walk back into the auditorium hallway and remember there's a landline located in the green room behind the stage. So I make my way to another set of doors that leads to the theater itself. When I swing those doors open, aside from the two dimly lit exit signs, all I can see in front of me is just black, endless darkness. The kind that only a windowless room can provide. Doing my best not to think about anything scary in the dark, I adjust my Stone Cold Steve Austin hat and step in. As the door shuts behind me, it also sweeps away the little illuminance that was given by the parking lot lights through the hallway. I begin to traverse the declining stairs toward the stage, trying to think about anything besides the fact that I'm all by myself in a big old theater during a rainstorm, trying to find a phone to call my mom. Stone Cold wouldn't be afraid, I think to myself, so I won't be. Each step, I moved my hand from seat to seat to help guide me as I worked my way down the rows, counting each one in hopes to occupy my thoughts and ignore the knot of fear growing in my chest. This was relatively successful until I reached row 12. I remember this vividly because row 12 is when I stopped counting and started running. Up until that point, to safely navigate, I would grip the back of the seat in front of me and count aloud the number I was on. Then slowly reach my hand out until I felt the fabric of the next one, move forward and repeat. But when I got to 12, it felt like I rested my hand not on a seat, but on a shoulder. Almost as immediately as I felt whatever it was take a breath, I jumped about 8 feet straight into the sky, and I let out a pretty loud shriek. My legs felt like jello now. I hit the ground, but then I launched my body forward and stumbled the rest of the way down toward the stage, now screaming and completely losing any composure I originally had. I get to the front of the stage and begin to crawl up the front of it like I'm trying to escape the pool of terror that I was doing so well at treading a mere 10 seconds ago. I do a log roll to get the rest of me on the stage, and I keep my eyes closed as the roll faces me towards the seats. When my roll is complete, I launch myself up from a push-up position, run through the 2 huge red curtains. There's another red exit sign on the wall, to the right of me, backstage, but the green room is straight ahead. I once again put my hands in front of me and blindly start to make my way to where I think this door handle approximately is, all while trying not to scream every time I touch one of the many props and clothing racks on the way. Soon my hands bump into the bricks of the back wall, and I start to desperately feel around for the textured wood of the green room door. I start moving my legs parallel to the wall, and then I hear the wheels on the clothing racks start to squeak and move again. I snapped my head left and I froze, holding in every whimper with a slow, deep breath, tears continuing to stream down my cheeks silently. With my whole body now pressed against the wall, I began to step opposite of where I thought I heard the sound come from. I need to stay as close to the wall as possible, be as quiet as possible, and get to that exit. I'll figure out what to do after that. I began to shuffle when my right foot bumps against what I'd come to figure out was the doorframe of the green room. My hands confirm it when I feel the textures change beneath them, and I feel the saving grace of a smooth copper door handle enter my grasp. I dive into the room and flip on the light located just inside the doorway. Instantly, I'm flooded in the safety of translucent bulbs as they hum to life. I slam the door behind me, then grab the stack of chairs, put one under the handle, grab another one, bring it over to the big vanity where the phone's located. I try to call my mom's cell phone, but it keeps going straight to voicemail. I then try to call my Uncle Dean. He picks up after the second ring, and I tell him everything. He tells me he's on his way, and to stay in that room until he gets there. When he hangs up, I look at the clock located above me. It's after 8 p.m. Rehearsal got out at 6. It's been hours. Where's my mom? I spent the next 10 minutes trying to call her cell phone over and over with no success before giving up. Sitting in the quiet green room, I cherished the sense of safety the yellow overhead lights provided while I waited for Dean to pick me up. I tried to think of the positive memories I'd had in this room, when it was filled with fellow thespians making art. This lasted until about 8:50, when the peaceful silence was interrupted by the faint sound of clapping coming from outside the door. Tears welled up in my eyes again as the claps began to multiply and increase in volume. What started as one distant clap became a deep, reverberant ovation of claps, accompanied by hoots and shouts. I have no other option in this situation. There's only one door in and one door out of this room. The sound is now deafening. The frequency is beginning to make me nauseous. I can't wait for my uncle to rescue me. I need to get out of here. I slide the chair out from under the door handle, cover my ears, kick the door open, and scream. But right before I make a mad dash into darkness, I realize the cheering and hollering has quieted down. Now there's just a single, distant shouting voice, mixed with some pounding. I uncover my ears and figure out it's my uncle pounding on the doors in the auditorium hallway, where I got in. I retrace my steps as diligently and as quickly as I can, maneuvering back up the stairs, making sure to use the wall as a guide, stay away from those seats. It was a bit easier back up because the exit sign was a stagnant point to focus on while climbing. I open the first set of double doors and I see my uncle pounding on the glass of the double doors leading out, the ones I entered from. They were locked again, at least from the outside, because when I pushed the handle, they opened. My uncle asked me if I was all right and says that he's glad I heard him pounding. Then he tells me that my mom was in a car accident on I-5. She's all right, but at the hospital in surgery. My uncle was her emergency contact, so when the doctors called him, he was able to relay the information that he was already on his way to come get me and bring me to the hospital. For better or for worse, the news of my mom's near-death experience changed the focus of that night. So I never had an opportunity to bring it up. I also thought it would make her feel worse for leaving me out there, even though she didn't have any control over it. She was in the hospital for about a month, and as the weeks passed, I began to doubt my experience and attribute the fears hallucinations brought on by unprocessed stress of the moment. But recalling it as an adult and having more of an open mind on stuff, I recently felt compelled to drive down to Shoreline and visit the theater again. To tell whatever resides there, thank you for keeping me safe and protecting me from the weather when I needed it. I came to find out that the school had been turned into a COVID-19 field hospital, and it made my heart happy, hoping whatever looked after me that night was now looking after the patients staying there.
What did you say, Cinnamon? We'll be right back after the message.
Neo Retro FM, live from Olympia, Washington. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Modern music programming. NeoRetroFM.com. Hi everyone, Amanda Jane here. Taking a moment to talk to you about something my husband Ryan and our band, Forget Me Not, are doing this summer. We're partnering with Foundation ESD and their Nourishing Network program to help families in need all summer. You can help support too. It just takes streaming our music all summer long as we continue to donate 100% proceeds to the foundation. Visit conductedbyforgetmenot.com for more information and join us in making No Student Hungry a reality. To learn more about the Foundation ESD and their various programs, please visit foundationesd.org or conductedbyforgetmenot.com.
And we are back.
I think these experiences are creepy enough to share here. If for no other reason than they actually happened in this reality, but don't seem to have much explanation in this reality. My wife doesn't usually drive to work since we share a car, and decided it would be best that I keep the car during the days, since my job keeps me at home with our son. We enjoy the time together in the morning, getting up at 4 a.m., loading our 3-year-old son into the car, who usually sleeps the whole time. And then we head out to take Mom to work. After that, we get home, both usually sleep on the couch for a bit, before really waking up for the day. We got home, I was going through the motions of our normal routine, set sleeping son on couch, lay down on the other side of couch, doze off. It seemed to be going off without a hitch. Until I woke up to the sound of my son crying, loudly, upstairs. I panic, jolting myself up because I'm thinking I didn't put the gate up and he's fallen, or gotten somewhere he shouldn't be. Without even looking at the other side of the couch, I sprint for the stairs. Trying not to panic further, I'm saying in a calmer tone than I'm feeling that it's going to be okay. But my heart races as I can still hear him crying. I'm running, now up the stairs. I open his door and nothing. The room's empty of anyone, but it held what I can only describe as an odd feeling. I am overwhelmed with confusion and run downstairs to see if the cries somehow ricocheted from somewhere down there. I don't even get past the living room when I see my son. He's sound asleep, on the couch where I left him originally. My wife thinks maybe I was half asleep or that this was a dream. I don't know about that, but I know that I got up, looked around, and everything. It was eerily familiar, which is another part of the story. I've lived in a haunted house before, at least that's the easiest way to describe it. Various voices when no one's around, unaccompanied footsteps throughout the whole house. Things that not just myself, but my mom and my sister experienced as well. The craziest being a voice that would often sound like my mother or sister to me, but sound like me or my mother to my sister. We didn't know what to call it, so we called it a mimic. I guess I find it strange that I've lived in this house for 3 years and no paranormal activity or otherwise negative experiences whatsoever, but this was definitely more than a dream. I go with unexplained because there's no way that that crying I heard was actually coming from my son. It was real enough, in the right volume, to where I assumed he was on the other side of the house. I'm not too worried, more as curious, if anyone knows anything about these things. Like, what's the end game? Deceit? Call me over to an empty room just to freak me out? The one when I was younger went away after too much attention was brought to it. So if it happens again, I guess I'll just treat it the same and respond to it. Has anyone else had experiences with entities like this? This happened to me at an old boyfriend's house in high school. I had gone to use his restroom and there wasn't a lock on the door. No big deal, I thought. It's just me, him, and his dad here, and his dad's downstairs. As I went to leave the bathroom, I noticed that the door was locked. But I knew that wasn't possible. I started to just jiggle the door a bit, thinking that maybe it just got stuck sometimes, or I didn't know how this door worked for some reason. After a bit of time, I sort of started to panic, tugging a little bit harder, hoping that I was making enough noise that my boyfriend might notice. Eventually, I started feeling really nervous and jiggled a lot harder at the door. I could feel this sort of bad energy in the bathroom. Then I could hear my boyfriend, and he was coming to the door. I remember thinking, thank goodness, he'll fix it. He probably knows what the problem is. He couldn't get the door open either, pulling at the handle, nothing. So much time had passed and no luck that he had to go and get his dad. After his dad tried the same things that we did, and I kept complaining that I didn't like how it felt in there, his dad just kicked the door down, telling me to move out of the way before he did. I was pretty creeped out by his house from then on, and especially after he told me of other weird things that would happen in the house. I didn't ask for details because I was creeped out. This was back in the summer of 2010. I had been living in California at the time, but was headed home to Washington to celebrate my 25th birthday. Me and 4 of my friends had rented a house on the lake for the weekend. It was near the wineries we wanted to spend a good deal of time at, and it had a pool. Not entirely necessary with the lake being there, but an added birthday bonus. We got an amazing deal on the place, which, looking back, should have made us suspicious, but it didn't. The house was spotless and exactly how the ad had portrayed it. We all settled in, picked our rooms, just hung out outside by the pool before deciding to hit the wineries. Before leaving, I was bummed I couldn't find all of the disposable cameras I bought. It was sort of my thing. Every birthday trip, I would leave them around if it was a big group, or if there was just a few of us, I'd give every person one, and we'd just take pictures of whatever. I loved developing them and seeing what I missed or what we forgot about. Anyways, I had one for each of us, but one of them was missing. We didn't bother wasting too much time looking. The shuttle had arrived, and it was going to take us to the winery, so we were out. When we got back, it was late. We were drunk and decided it was the perfect time to utilize the pool. It was amazing. We turned on all the lights, just chilled out there. For some reason, the AC wasn't working, so we stayed out there for quite a while. When suddenly I heard my friend, we'll call her Amy. Amy says, "What was that?" Everyone sort of looks around and looks at her. We all ask her what she's talking about. Without saying anything, she gets off of her floaty, gets out of the pool, and walks over towards the outdoor grill. The rest of us have no idea what she's doing or what she was talking about. But then we noticed that she started to face us and was mouthing for us to get out, and then pointing to the sliding glass door. I started to put together that she walked over there to be out of view of the door. To try to understand, I also get out of the pool. Amy said she saw something walk across the front room window very quickly, but that it had looked like it walked past from inside the house. If it was outside, it would have been blocked by those thingies on the window, the frame, or whatever. Because outside you'd see... I must have had a strange look on my face because as she was telling me, she stopped talking. Most of me knew that Amy was pretty drunk, and also that she tended to be a bit more dramatic than the rest of us. I mean that nicely, it's just that it's true. "I'll go check," I said in an attempt to help her, not feel like I was dismissing her. I stood there a moment because there was this other part of me that was a bit nervous. By now, we were all out of the pool, sitting on the outdoor furniture, under the lights. I had my cell phone over there and I kept asking Amy if I should call the police, but she kept backtracking, saying that maybe it was the streetlights at a weird angle. Maybe it was the trees. She'd had a lot to drink. And then that too much chlorine could make her feel loopy sometimes. So our buzz was getting a bit killed, and we decided, all 5 of us, we'd go inside and investigate. Half serious and half just to do what we could to move on. We looked in every single room, nooks and crannies. There was no one inside the house. Not to mention, the door was still locked. We all laughed it off. Made sure to lock up real good that night, and we all went to bed. But not before I emailed the owners about the AC not working. The evening was relatively uneventful. I tossed and turned a bit, and I finally gave up on blankets is when I got some sleep. The next morning, Amy says that she didn't sleep very well either, that she kept waking up. We chalked it up to the fact that it was super hot, and without AC, these really nice cozy blankets were sort of pointless. We got an email back from the owners that morning. They said they were very sorry about the AC, that they thought someone had come to fix it before we arrived, and they'd make sure someone did it today. Since it was our last day anyways, we decided to go to one of our favorite wineries. It was also on the lake, so we'd just hang out there for the day. When we got home that night, we honestly couldn't believe they hadn't fixed the AC. It was so hot that we had no choice but to retreat to the pool, even though we'd been in the water all day. I went to go change into a different swimsuit, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Thinking that someone had grabbed it, I went to ask the girls if they borrowed it. On my way, one of my friends was standing in the kitchen looking at the refrigerator. "Did you do that?" she asked me. Earlier, we'd spelled out our names and made a palm tree with the magnetic letters on the fridge. But it was no longer there. Instead, they were all rearranged in the shape of a large smiley face. I hadn't done that, and obviously she hadn't either. I wasn't convinced this was creepy or anything like that. I was more focused on how I really wanted to take a picture of our names and the art, if you will, before we messed with it. I told my friend that I didn't do it, and at this point, I actually forgot that I was looking for my bathing suit. We all got into the pool as we were, and we were in a very pleasant place, joking about how we were going to try to get a full refund for the owners messing up the AC. After swimming, we busted out a huge fan that we'd found in the garage. We sent off another email to the owners, not asking for a refund, but explaining the problem wasn't fixed and hoping that they'd offer some sort of explanation. At the very least, we were letting these people know that they'd hired some pretty unreliable people. That night, we all decided to put the fan in the living room, open all the windows, and just eventually fall asleep there since it was cooler than the bedrooms. We were all watching Zombieland, and when I got up to use the restroom, I could have sworn I saw a shadow that was coming from the top of the stairs near the 2 back bedrooms that had mine and Amy's things in them. I stood there a moment and listened. I didn't hear anything, but still felt a little creeped out. I started to walk up the stairs, and I could see that the hanging light in the hallway was moving a bit. I sort of rushed back to the living room. I explained myself, stating that I know it could be nothing, but maybe we should check it out. We all decided to go, but not before Amy and the others put out there that they thought this place could be haunted. And if it was a ghost, we should leave it alone. I was more worried about an animal, or at least confirming that it was a ghost moving things around. Exploring felt better than trying to sleep not knowing. So I convinced them that we should check it out. This time we gathered weapons. We made light of it because we were sort of scared. We found nothing, except my bathing suit. It was in the upstairs bathroom that I had already checked earlier. When I told them this, they were just more convinced that something strange was going on. We stuck to our decision to all sleep together in the living room. Again, hot as hell, just trying to get comfortable. Sometime early the next morning, we woke up freezing cold. The AC was working. A little late, but whatever. We all sort of groaned about it as we made our way to our rooms to get some more sleep before the sun came up. When I got to my room and laid in bed, I felt something hard under the covers. It was a disposable camera. The one I had lost. I was sure of it. I threw it in my bag and fell asleep. As we were leaving, we did a final sweep, making sure that nobody had left anything behind. We were all in the kitchen just talking about what a great time we'd had, how we loved the pool, when my friend looked at the refrigerator and says, "Aw, who ruined our beautiful art?" Me and my other friend looked at each other. The smiley face was a sad face now. I looked back at the other two and said, "Wait, who actually ruined the masterpiece? Because we thought one of you two did." None of us had touched the magnets. We swore on everything. And with that, we decided to get the hell out of that place. We did have a great time, but this was one too many things that led us to believe something strange was happening. Fast forward 3 months. I finally get around to developing all of the pictures from the trip. By the time I get to the 3rd roll, I'm completely horrified. 25 pictures of me and my friends sleeping. I knew instantly that these weren't the kind of pictures any of us would take of each other for so many reasons. The top reason being that we're not creepy individuals who like to look at each other sleep. All I kept thinking as I frantically flipped through these pictures was, whoever took these was right there. Every crazy thought went through my mind at the time. From the owners being crazy stalkers to a ghost taking phantom photos. I was now on the last set of photos, looking for anything else creepy. Then, chills all over my entire body. A picture of all of us, squeezing into frame, standing with the pool and the house in the background. And a man. In the upstairs window. The window of the room I was staying. You can't see all the details of the man, but you can see a man, not a ghost. Looking at us. I called every single one of my friends and told them what I found. And after a good deal of freaking out, one of my friends said that she was going to have her dad reach out to the owners of the house who had posted the rental listing. He was a lawyer and very angry, so this seemed like a safe route for us. It took a while for us to get a lot of the details, but it turned out that the couple who'd originally listed the home had pulled it down by the time we reported this. After our stay, a family had rented the house, and apparently the father reported hearing noises in the home. He ended up calling the police, saying that he heard it coming from the attic. When the police arrived, they found a man who appeared to be living in the attic. Well, he actually worked for the company that the couple had hired to fix the air conditioning unit, but my friend's father told me that it wasn't really a company. It was more under the table. He was working with local police and provided our photos as evidence against the man. They did locate him a few months later. I don't think we were supposed to find that camera. I think that they dropped it, lost it, by mistake. We're much more careful with our rentals now, especially because we have no real proof that this couple had nothing to do with it. All we know is that people can be scarier than ghosts. Back in February, my partner and I moved into a new place, and we've been having nightmares ever since. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to even consider moving during the pandemic, and the worst of the nightmares were during Michigan's stay-at-home, stay-safe executive order back in March and April. What's especially strange about those dreams, or nightmares, is that I'm not a vivid dreamer. Before the move, I couldn't remember the last time I actually dreamt or had a nightmare. During the stay-at-home order, one nightmare was particularly unbelievable. One that's hard to shake because it felt so incredibly real and, well, I don't remember falling asleep, but the dream started with me lying in bed next to my partner, with our door slightly open as usual. It felt like that's where I'd been for a while, if that makes any sense. So, in the dream, neither of us could fall asleep. We were just lying there in silence, not tossing and turning, but lying down. And then we began to talk about different concerts and how it sucked that the coronavirus was putting a halt to a couple of our favorites. That turned into a discussion about our favorites. And I recall that my partner was getting really passionate, talking about why his favorites were his favorites. Suddenly, we hear this creepy sound that sounded very much like a grown human crawling across the ground really fast and stopping at the bedroom entrance. My heart sank to my ass. I had this feeling that I had been checking the entryway often before this happened, with a bad, ominous feeling that something would be there. And it was always empty, so I told myself, I'm being ridiculous. Well, after that sound, my partner and I quickly turned to the entrance, and there, squatting on the ground, is a dark figure. No face. Very slender body, small head, long arms with sharp claws. The energy of the dream was so dark and became extremely heavy. You could say demonic. I was frozen. My partner, I could hear just saying hello, hello, towards it. Then it began to flail its arms, and I woke up in a cold sweat. Imagine the heart attack I almost had when just a few moments later, my partner jolts up, shines the light from his phone at the door as quickly as he can. Totally out of breath, he says, "Well, oh, never mind." So I'm laying there, looking like, what? And I say, "Everything okay, love?" And he says, "Yes, sorry, just a nightmare." "Do you smell something burning?" I said no, and he seemed happy, and that was that. He went back to sleep. I did not sleep at all that night, and when I told him about my nightmare and asked him about his the next morning, he literally turned white. I had described my nightmare, which was almost identical to his. Everything from what the thing looked like, where it appeared, him talking to it, everything. We haven't had any additional shared experiences like that yet, but we both have trouble sleeping here and often have unusual nightmares. We're eager to move, but who knows when that will be possible for us. Just hopeful things can't hurt you in your dreams, no matter how real it feels. One year in elementary school, our choir had made it to championships. The building that we'd be performing at was an old, large chapel in rural eastern Washington. While practicing the evening before the competition, a few of us were running around the creepy chapel after singing. We were waiting for our teacher to finish up with some of the other adults, and we decided to explore upstairs. When we got up there, we could see that there was a rocking chair, and it was moving slightly. We slowed our steps and looked around. We couldn't see that anyone was up there. And just as we were about to mount the platform and walk over to the chair and the chest that was sitting next to it, the chair started to move rapidly back and forth. All of us screamed and piled down the stairs as fast as we could, our teacher shushing us and asking us to calm down, and us not calming down, trying to explain what we just saw. She calms us down and shoos us to the bus. We never got an explanation for this, and we weren't taken seriously. We still obviously had to perform at the same chapel the next morning. None of us could bring ourselves to look at the upper level. I can't speak for the rest of them, but I felt like whatever had rocked that chair was watching us from up there. I was happy that next year I'd be in middle school, not eligible for these championships, which meant I'd never have to step foot inside there again. When I was younger, I wanted a music box that had a ballerina inside of it. My mom found one at what I believe was an antique shop near our house. She had it restored and customized so that the box would have my name on it. She also made sure to get a newly painted ballerina placed inside. I remember I was so excited just by looking at the outside of the box. My name, I thought. How cool. I brought the box over to the couch in the living room to sit down and listen to the tune that it was going to play, and to watch the ballerina dance. I was disappointed when I opened the box and saw a very dirty, partially broken ballerina sitting on the spring. That's weird, I thought. And then I looked further inside the box and saw that there was another ballerina inside, new and nicely painted to match my brown skin and my brown eyes, even wearing my favorite color, purple. I decided, no big deal. I'll just switch the two. I took off the old ballerina, and the music made a weird, distorted sound before stopping. I was sure that I had broken the thing. I put the new ballerina on the spring and hoped that that would make the music start again. But sadness swept over my body I couldn't believe I broke the very thing I'd wanted so badly. I left everything as it was, open, the old ballerina tossed inside of the box, the new one sitting on the spring, no music. I moped my way across the house in search of my mom, to inform her of my terrible mistake. I hadn't found her yet when, suddenly, I could hear the music box playing again. Overwhelmed with excitement, I ran back to the living room, but then I slowed my pace as I saw something that just wasn't possible. The old ballerina, back on the spring, just twirling around, music playing. As I approached the box, I could see that the new ballerina was lying on the floor near the leg of the couch. I was confused because no one was near the living room. When I did find my mom, I could tell that she didn't take me too seriously. I eventually decided to keep the ballerinas as they originally were. The old one on the spring, the new one in the box. The box would sometimes open by itself. I never actually witnessed it, but I would wake up to the music playing, and there it was, open on my dresser. I vividly remember sneaking that music box into another box that my parents were taking to storage about a year later. I never saw it again. Well, to everyone who made it this far, thank you for joining me tonight. And thank you for joining me every Friday night, right here on neoretrofm.com. I look forward to it every week, and I sure hope you do as well. Speaking of you, do you have stories like these? I'd love to share them. Send them to me, amandadarkesthour@gmail.com, or visit my subreddit, The Darkest Hour. Stay spooky. And now, the real end of the show. Here is Forget-Me-Not's latest single, Canary.
Feathers of gold and earth collide. Oh, some came loose when I was learning to fly. Yeah, canary singing in the mind, singing in the mind. Canary singing in the mind, singing in the mind.
Curtains closing on reality. I'm making leaps far beyond what I was bound to be. And lately I've been feeling lucky when I'm gambling. I'm all in, let it spin like a vinyl. Play that record for me. I got that crystal ball vision, it's authentic, you can test it. I'm looking through you tricks and I predict I do it better. I've been dabbling in that black magic witchcraft, and I use alchemy. Trade that snapback for a cap.
Feathers of gold and earth collide. Some came loose when I was learning to fly. Canary singing in the mind, singing in the mind. Oh. Canary singing in the mind, singing in the mind. Yeah, you can check the bucket list. I've been working 365 and 24/7. As long as I'm breathing, ain't nothing changing. I can't imagine doing things different. Trying to get a hold of my depression. Like pick up the phone when you get the message. And can you tell my better side I miss him? Cause he's been treating me like a stranger. Now all my patients get a flat line. And out of medicines able to make a shot down. I send a chopper to a nosedive. Propeller hit the block, smoking all the punks out. Emotionless cause my mama said you better never let them see you cry. And the best defense is a weakness no one's gonna ever find. So in between blame the raindrops. I'm walking steady and staying dry. I learned a smile was a great disguise to hide all my rage behind. And when I go, I don't want a funeral. Leave my shells so the grass can grow and pray I reincarnate somewhere beautiful, please.